friends, my name is Marines, and today I'll be talking about all of the books that I read in October. It was another really great reading month for me. I read a total of 12 things in the form of 9 books and 3 graphic novels. In total, I read 4,138 pages, and my average rating for the month was 3.58, so just a little bit above average. First up, I have Imperfect Light by Benjamin Alire Sanz. I read this as part of my Hispanic Heritage Reads project, and I made a separate wrap-up video for that, so I will link you guys to it if you want to hear me talk a little bit more about this book. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars for being beautifully and effectively written and emotionally gripping. Next up, I have a few graphic novels. The Sleeper and the Spindle by Neil Gaiman, illustrated by Chris Riddell. This is a fairy tale retelling that combines elements of Snow White and Sleeping Beauty. I really enjoyed the illustrations and the whole aesthetic of the book, which is this black and white kind of thing with just touches of gold. It was a ton of fun to look at, and I enjoyed the story as well. I especially enjoyed the parts that subverted all of the fairy tale kind of tropes, especially when it came to Snow White and the damsel in distress. However, it was so short that I couldn't help feeling a little bit underwhelmed by it. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. Next, I have Fables, the Deluxe Edition Book 1 by Bill Willingham. I love this so much. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, but I think it's grown to a 5-star amount in my feelings after the fact. I think you guys know by now that I love things that have to do with fairy tales, and this is about fairy tale characters who have been driven out of their land and are now trying to make it in New York City. They're trying to blend in and keep a low profile, but it's not so easy when you are dealing with so many fairy tale characters. I love the characters, especially Snow White, who we follow. She's in charge and practical and a touch naive, but never in distress in this first bind-up. I'm really excited to continue on with the story, and that doesn't often happen to me with graphic novels. I'm crap anyway about continuing things in a series, like I don't know why that is a thing about me, but with graphic novels especially, I generally don't end them and go, wow, I want to pick up the next one. With this one, that was certainly my reaction. Next, I have this one, Summer by Jillian and Mariko Tamaki. I had this on my TBR for the entire summer. Thankfully, I live in Florida where it is still technically summer, so. In the story, Rose and her mother and father go to the same lake house they go to every summer. In that place, she has a friend that she meets only during the summers named Wendy. This summer is different for Rose though, because it is pretty much the summer that she is growing up and kind of going from childhood to adolescence. Her parents are fighting a ton, and even her friend Wendy kind of is getting on her nerves, and she's noticing things that she never noticed before, not only with her parents but with people and boys and a whole bunch of different things. The art here is absolutely stunning. I know everyone says that about graphic novels they read. The art is beautiful, but seriously, this is some of the best that I've encountered in my limited experience with graphic novels, but honestly, this was just amazing to look at. I was a little surprised to find that this story wasn't really about anything. There is definitely not a strong plot backbone here. It is very much just about this period of time that Rose is coming of age, she's growing up, she's noticing things she's never noticed before. That is very much what the story is. So if you need a really strong plot, this will probably disappoint you. I thought that there was enough here with the characters and just the feel and the look of it that it was really worth my time. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. My pick from my reader recommended jar was Falling Kingdoms. Before I read this, I had heard pretty positive things about it, and I had also heard it compared to Game of Thrones, like a YA Game of Thrones. People really shouldn't have done that to this book. I mean, there is a large cast of characters and some political intrigue, but other than that, no. A plot summary is difficult because there are 3 separate kingdoms and we follow 4 main characters across those kingdoms. Basically, there's discord across the kingdoms, mainly because wealth is unequally distributed. I definitely found the second half of the book to be much better than the first half. By the end, I was invested in characters and story enough that I was interested in continuing on with the series. I did find that there were some flaws here, however. Some of the problems I was reading about felt a little bit forced because all of the worldviews of the main characters was really narrow. It came across as having ham-fisted characterization, which is a shame because Rhodes took care to make sure that none of her characters was entirely good or entirely bad. They are all meant to be complex and have complex motivations, but to me, it just too often aired on the side of everyone having too little empathy for other humans. Everyone just kind of blindly hated the people from the neighboring countries, and anytime something bad would happen, the knee-jerk reaction seemed to be, well, let's kill them all. I don't know if that makes sense, but perhaps if you read it before, you can kind of see what I mean about all of them just being a little too much and coming on a little too strong with that whole I hate all of them, let's kill them kind of mentality. As a result of this, I found that it made the characters blend together and all of their murder wishing, secret keeping, melodramatic sameness. The character I was most rooting for by the end was Cleo. My least favorite was probably Magnus. I know that there are people who really like him and I'm sure that he has an arc, but just the start of it here, I really just wanted to yell at him, get over it. In all, I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. Next, I picked up Solace by Gail Carriger on a whim. I really don't even remember what inspired me to get this from the library, but I took it with me when I went to NerdCon. It was fun and well-paced, and Alexia Terabati is just a wonderful and sassy protagonist. After reading this, I didn't have a ton of thoughts or feelings on the story. It was just funny and kind of ridiculous and a little bit trashy and all around a good time. I gave this 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next, I have The Rest of Us Just Live Here by Patrick Ness. I was a little bit nervous about reading this because the reactions to it seemed to be lukewarm, and I love Patrick Ness and I didn't want to be disappointed. Thankfully, I wasn't, but I also see why people might have been, and it made me love this story even more. To explain, on the back of this book, Ness basically tells us that this is a story about an ordinary guy and not the superheroes or the superpowered people that kind of are around him. It was kind of amazing to me that as I started reading this, I was still expecting the extraordinary to start happening. It's amazing the way that Ness frames not only the characters' lives, but the story itself by the indie kids, which is what he calls these super-powered, chosen one superhero kinds. It almost starts to pull at our attention. In fact, a lot of the reviews that I read that were kind of meh on it said that this was boring, or that they would have liked to see more superhero bits in it, or that this was just about a bunch of ordinary kids doing like nothing. And I'm just like, exactly, this is brilliant, it's so good. The whole truth of the matter is that a lot of us would rather be reading about the superheroes instead of some boring kids about to graduate. Right? Then Ness continues to compound on his genius by highlighting that the ordinary lives of these kids are anything but. Ness seems to be saying that none of us are ordinary or normal, and there's a kind of adventure in surviving and choosing to live. We find all kinds of diversity in the characters that he includes in this story, covering the scale of sexuality and neurodiversity and race and family makeup. I really ended up loving this, and if you are the kind of person that can read about the extraordinary things that make up an ordinary life, then I would recommend this for you. If you need a little bit more action and adventure, maybe this won't be for you. It's rather sassy and tongue-in-cheek with its take on the hero genre and YA in general, because as the author says in the book itself, no one here is dying beautifully of cancer. I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. Next, I finally read A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab, and I didn't like it. I just was not expecting the characters and plot to be so shallow. We spend about 400 pages with Kel and we walk away knowing nothing about him. We spend about that time with Lila, and I wish I knew nothing about her. She belongs to a trope of female characters that I just cannot stand. I made this comparison in my Goodreads review, but she reminds me so much of Vin from The Final Empire. She's one of those I've had a rough life so I'm going to make ridiculous decisions kind of characters. Beyond them, everyone else in this book is a prop and shell of a character. The plot took too long to get to where I was going, especially considering that the plot is I accidentally brought a magic stone home and I have to take it back. Also, it really upset me that Kel didn't use his awesome powers more. Every time he got into a situation where he was like, oh no, I'm trapped, or someone is coming after me, which was pretty much every chapter, I was just yelling, use your magic. He's supposed to be the super powerful guy, but it was just really inconsistent, and I don't know that I grasped why that was happening and why he just didn't use his awesome magic. It took me 3 tries to get through this because it just kind of ambles along between Londons that are cool in premise, but just there's no nuance in practice. I gave this 2 out of 5 stars. After A Darker Shade of Magic, I was in a pretty pissy reading mood. I kept picking things up and starting them and not really being able to get into them. I think what I wanted was something that would take off right away, that I really didn't have to work for after trying so hard to get through A Darker Shade of Magic. Around that time, I saw people gearing up for the release of Career of Evil by Robert Galbraith, so that inspired me to read The Cuckoo's Calling and The Silkworm. I read both of these in a matter of a few few days, and I gave both of them 4 out of 5 stars. I love Cormoran Strike as a character. At the heart of these mysteries are really just these wonderful characters, because to me, both of the mysteries were interesting, but not anything out of this world. They were very suspect heavy, and there were a lot of moving parts to them. That may slow down the pace for people who are accustomed to mysteries that are a little snappier and quicker. I don't read a ton of mysteries, and I really love stories that are full of descriptions and really bright and vivid characters, and that's what these are. I like the mystery in the Cuckoos Calling more, but I found that in the Silkworm we already had characters and premise established, so we kind of flowed into the story a little easier. So overall, I enjoyed these both an equal amount. After these, and as I was waiting for Career of Evil to get to me, I remembered that J.K. Rowling, aka Robert Galbraith, had this other thing that she wrote, so I decided to pick up Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone for a reread. I actually did not read this, which is the illustrated version. I just read the book, and on the day that I finished the reread, Amazon sent me this, and it had been so long since I ordered it that I forgot that I had ordered it. So this was my 3rd time reading through, and what stuck out to me during this reread was really Harry himself. Sweeney and I used to talk about this all of the time when we were covering Buffy the Vampire Slayer, about people who watch things and don't like the main characters, like people who watch Buffy and don't like Buffy, or read Harry Potter and don't like Harry Potter. There's also this phenomenon where if you ask people what their favorite character in Harry Potter is, chances are that they'll answer somebody other than Harry, either because they think that Harry's a given or Harry's not their favorite. We spend so much time with Harry, and it's really his mistakes and his faults and his ups and downs that we focus on, that people tend to pick the characters that are a little more novel, that we don't spend as much time with, to be their favorites. And Harry definitely has his moments later in the series where you just kind of want to knock him upside the head. But here in this first book, I really appreciated him as a character, and just as this boy who was thrown into the situation, but he's got such a good heart, and he's so brave, and he's so resourceful and funny, and just the way that he reacts to things, even in the beginning when he's with the Dudleys, he reacts so well to a really crappy situation, and you never really hear him complaining about anything, but just rolling with the punches. So like I said, I really appreciated him as a character during this reread. Lastly, I read Twilight for the 31 Days of Twilight project that I did. I did chapter by chapter written recaps that you can check out with a link down in the description. In a nutshell, it's not the worst thing I've ever read, congratulations, but it is really bad. I have dedicated lots of words to my feelings on it, so just check that out, but nah. Let me know down in the comments if you've read any of the books that I've mentioned in this video and what you thought of them. Also, I'm curious, what is your favorite Harry Potter character? Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys soon. A group of us tried to get together and buddy read this, but we were just kind of all over the place in a hot mess.